Hi, everyone. Welcome to another edition of Great Companies, Great Leaders. So excited to have you with us today. There's so much going on in our communities and in our country right now. It's just great to take a break for a minute, learn more about leadership development, especially with our special guest today, Charlie Palumbo. We are going to have a great conversation with her about women empowerment, around women leaders, men leaders, what it takes to be a great leader. So we're really excited that you joined us. So I'd like to welcome our guest, Charlie Palumbo, who's the Chief Executive Officer of Intentional Leaders. Charlie, welcome.
Thank you, Christine. Thanks for having me. Excited to be here.
It's great to have you. A little bit about Charlie, because we love to start our podcast with a bio, just to let you know who is on the show. So Charlie is, again, CEO of Intentional Leaders, which is a professional services company focused on leadership development and consulting. And prior to starting her company, she was program manager for Amazon Last Mile Delivery Service Partner, and she led national partnerships. She has also assisted hundreds of candidates considering or launching small businesses in partnership with Amazon. She was the Director of Transition and Employment Programs at the Virginia Department of Veteran Services, where she served as the primary lead in developing and overseeing the creation of transition and employment programs of all the programs that created opportunities and pathways for employment for veterans and their spouses, which is so close to my heart and so important. That transition phase can be such a challenge for veterans, especially veterans and their spouses, right? So prior to Department of Veteran Services, Charlie spent 3 years at the Virginia Employment Commission as the Veteran Program Manager, where she oversaw the Bridge to Employment Program and Jobs for Veterans Program. She also worked for several years at the Office of Personnel Management as a program coordinator at the Federal Executive Institute. And I really should have started with this last piece because it really is just a huge thank you for your service. Charlie spent 4 years in the Navy, stationed in Japan, and then accompanied her husband as a military spouse for a 4-year tour in Naples. Ms. Palumbo is also the mom of 2 boys, a poet, a published author, and advocate. First and foremost, thank you for your service in the Navy.
Thank you.
Loved your service, love your history in terms of just so much service and leadership, so much leadership. We're gonna start our conversation off with your volunteering. I really want to talk a little bit about the organization that you're volunteering with, although I know it's more than just Fresh Start. But Fresh Start is a women's foundation and it's local to Arizona, and it helps women improve their life with career and education skills, and also wraparound services like social work, family law, and mentoring. So it's a significant organization in our community. And you've been spending some time upskilling and helping women with their professional development skills. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah, I moved to Arizona. It's been, I guess, a year and a few months. And so I have made it through a summer, which I know all Arizonans say you have to do to claim it. So I have made it through and I'm in my second. And when I got here, I was working for Amazon and made a life decision to leave and start my own company around leadership development and coaching. And I found myself looking around saying, I don't know my community. I want to get involved with my community. How can I do that while still doing what I'm passionate about, what will help with my business, and then what will allow me to serve? And Fresh Start kind of popped up when I was searching, and they just get such great reviews from people. I mean, if I say Fresh Start in Arizona, people have
everyone knows. Everyone knows.
They are, and they've been delightful to work with. And so I've had the privilege and honor to work through the curriculum that they have for women. I mean, it's all kinds of great curriculum on professionalism, executive presence, boundaries, building out your social support, how to interview, such important stuff. And I think we forget sometimes or take it for granted that this is just stuff that people know, and sometimes they really don't. And it's always great to be in self-development. Big fan. Anytime I can make myself better, I'm there. And so I've really just enjoyed working alongside the great members at Fresh Start and being able to share with women, self-development and discovery opportunities. So that's what I'm doing for Fresh Start right now.
I can only imagine what a benefit it's providing. I think, to your point, we think about interviewing or we think about some of the professional development skills and we think at a certain age you should know all those things. But honestly, it changes and transforms over the years. And so staying current is super important. So I'm sure that there's differences in what you maybe started with your career and how it is now. But I know that upskilling is super important in terms of all those things.
Well, and I think what I like to tell people is it's showing up for yourself too. And celebrate that. We don't take the time to shut down and just focus on ourselves enough.
Right. That's so true. So true. So your roles, when we look at your bio and we just read your bio and thinking about the different positions that you've had, they've all been in leadership. And we know it takes a strong leader to drive change and impact, whether it's in the community or it's in the state or an organization like Fresh Start. What do you think when you think about leadership and the roles you've been in? What do you think is your greatest accomplishment in your career?
So the thing that I am most proud of was a lot of lessons learned too. At the same time, was when I started with the state at the Employment Commission in Virginia. My boss, he was a sponsor for me. He was a great guy, military veteran himself. He called me in the office and said, "Charlie, what do you see the gap and need for Virginia for veterans?" And I said, "Women veterans, there's nothing for us." And he asked me what I thought there should be for us. And I was like, well, I don't really know, but I think a conference would be great where we could convene, where we didn't feel as invisible, where we had really good leadership conversations, camaraderie. Like, can I do that? And he was like, go do it. And he just set me off to do it. Now, I made a lot of errors in how I got there, but the first year I pulled off two. I had great sponsorship. Yeah, we did one in Northern Virginia and one in the Hampton Roads area. So on each side of the state. It was definitely, I was tired. But you know what? We picked up steam and it has since become a staple every year in Virginia. And I think I started with like 150 people and, not very big press or anything. And the last year I was there was like 3-4 years ago before I left the state. We actually were able to do a pitch contest for women veteran entrepreneurs.
Wow.
And the governor showed up and we had 800 plus registrants and it was just absolutely amazing. And one of the things that I love seeing pop up on my LinkedIn each year is that they're still continuing to have this conference for women veterans. So it feels good in the sense that like I saw a need. And then if anyone's been in state government, you might resonate. It's always great when you see something continue, even though the person leaves the position.
Right.
So having that continue on and seeing it pop in LinkedIn still to this day is just truly something that warms my heart.
Congratulations. That is a significant accomplishment and a sustainable one. Right? A sustainable, it continues to grow. And I couldn't echo your comments more. For women, veterans, the opportunities to have professional development sometimes seem to be limited, right? And their experience, as you know, is different in the military than men. And it's obviously very different than corporate.
Yeah, and right now I'm working for the Women Veteran Interactive Foundation as a part of the consulting work I'm doing. And we're actually building out a cohort called Beyond the Transition for women veterans because there are different needs. And Christine, I think you can totally resonate with this. It is hard sometimes to get people to understand that women do need different leadership. And then you layer in being a veteran and the things that you learned in the military or the way the military is structured. And there's just different needs that are unique to women and the safe space and the trust that's created with women and women's leadership, I think is really important and powerful. So I am really excited to still be doing some work in the women veteran community and still around leadership and having women see their leadership potential outside of the uniform and their next mission that they're going to complete.
That is a great lead in to talking about the Women's Leadership Conference that's coming up for us in Arizona. And I think we should talk about that more offline, really, in terms of how do we ensure that women veterans are included? How do we ensure that there's a space for them and that we're addressing what their needs are too? But we're in the process of developing this sustainable model for local women leadership conferences. And what I didn't realize was that how much of a thirst there was in the community for this. So sometimes I think there's so much out there, and then I realize there isn't a lot out there. So we started pulling this, a city in Arizona, specifically a municipality, came to our organization and said, could you design something for women in our community? We feel like there's a need. And I said, let me just do a temperature check to make sure there is a need. And overwhelmingly, there is. And so the initial pilot will launch here in Arizona in October. And we've polled women and researched what are the areas that women could be most impacted by. And we've included that in our agenda. We have some stellar presenters like Dr. Connie Mariano, who's the White House doctor, Pat Milligan, who's retired CEO of Mercer, and a host of others who have a strong commitment to women and girls and their ability to rise up in their leadership capacities. So we hope as the conference launches that it'll launch in other cities and states, that it really provides access to growth and development opportunities for women who want to take on larger roles or who just want to stay current in their current role. And so we're really excited, but Charlie, I think we need a partner because I want to ensure that we are inclusive of women veterans. And so as you think about those kinds of experiences that you and I have gone to many conferences, but that we're getting ready to provide, what types of experiences provided you with the most opportunities to grow and develop?
Well, first I want to say that it's amazing what you're doing and you're a role model. So
Thank you.
keep doing the good work. We do need more women like you in the community, building more women's communities. I think it has a real trickle effect. So thank you for that.
Thank you.
I know it takes a lot of rolling up the sleeves and grit. So
Yes, it does.
it's not easy to make that come to fruition. So thank you. Wow, there's so many things, right? I just came to mind. I went to Arizona State University and did a mindfulness leadership course here in Arizona, not even 6 months ago. And I think that the attitudinal foundations of mindfulness and the practice have been something that as a new entrepreneur, I have like really just hung on to. And something that I would offer might be really, really interesting at your event. And for women, just, it really talks about not having judgment, being patient, like having that beginner's mind, trust, non-striving, accepting, letting go. Like these are all things as an entrepreneur. I can tell you, I have met my edges trying to be in a space where I have some self-compassion too, right? And I think that's sometimes hard for women, is that self-compassion and self-care. Totally found myself in that, burned out this last year and a half, and have been on the journey to change course with that. But going back to trust and something that was so important in my own journey is like some of these conferences, you get these assessments, these 360s, these tools, and sometimes we can kind of like, hey, yeah, I know myself. And I did one at a leadership training, and it was my 360, and all my team stakeholders, they take the assessment and say what they say about me. And I was so on cue and self-awareness. I was like, I got this, like everything's lining up. I pretty much knew, myself and what people would say about me. But then there was one segment around trust. And it was really, really surprising to me that everybody rated me so high and I was like all the way down here, and it's such a huge gap.
Mhm.
And I started kind of doing some digging, because when you're kind of lined up on everything and then you have that one red flag, it's like, there's where I can spend some time. And I recognized that I didn't have a lot of trust in myself as a young leader. I hadn't really built my own self-trust. I was earning other people's trust, and I was busy like doing all my achievements and my validations and all the things that you do. But I had to really flip the switch and say, how do I build trust with myself?
Mm.
And so I took some, doing some journaling, doing some meditating, doing some like, hey, here's my values, going back to the values and knowing the values. And if you know your values, you can kind of trust yourself, because you're going to operate within your value system. So it was really kind of sent me on a journey to really build trust with myself. So I think trust is just so important as a leader for yourself and to build with others.
So self-trust is eye-opening, right? Because to your point, we do a lot to bring credibility in the marketplace or wherever, right? We are, whether it's volunteering or whatever stage we find ourselves in or situation. We do a lot to build trust with the people in our network. But trusting ourselves is a whole different animal, right? In terms of looking back over decisions that we made. Could I trust myself to make good decisions? And typically, hopefully we are, right? We all have areas where we've fallen down and we're like, man, I wish I would have done that differently, but we really can. But that's a growth, isn't it? That's really
It's
growth.
a continual growth process, because you're always evolving. So there's bigger things to trust yourself on. I know as an entrepreneur, like I have to trust myself completely, and there's no one else to blame. Total ownership.
Right?
And I think it goes to that, the letting go quicker too.
Yeah.
I don't know if you found this with women, but the ruminating, I don't see my partner doing it as much as I do. If I make a mistake, like I stay in it. And so as an entrepreneur, really learning, like I'm going to make a lot of mistakes, and I just have to fail fast and just pick myself
Right.
back up and not spin, because then you start to take away the trust in yourself.
Yes. Failing fast, super important.
Yeah. Yeah.
Otherwise, it does impact and erodes that confidence, right? And how we show up and the ability to show up as our best self.
Yeah. And the other thing from conferences, I think it's the networking, really building the
Mm.
network. I took a women's coaching certification program, and was, because for me, partnerships is important and relationships are important. And it just always has been a superpower for me, connector. But recognizing that there's a lot of women that don't have that skill set, and the importance of social support and building an inner circle,
Yeah.
and how much that's meant to me. And I think opportunities like what you're going to put on in women conferences and leadership training, that's one of the biggest benefits. And it normalizes experience too, right? Like
Right.
sometimes I don't know what I'm experiencing is normal. And then I get to chat around a facilitated group with other women. I'm like, oh, this is normal. I'm okay. Like,
Right.
it's okay.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And to our earlier, our conversation earlier in this podcast, we were talking about women veterans, and my experience, with the military. I have 3 veterans in my family. So my dad and both of my brothers were in the military, Coast Guard, Navy, and Marine.
Okay.
And, when I was learning more about the culture of the military and their transition and being a veteran, I realized that networking is really frowned upon in the military. So when they exited the military, all 3 of them left with just very high ranks and just tremendous experiences. And so my corporate background, I had this expectation of them, like, you're going to land this great career and you're going to do part 2 and everything's going to be great. And it was a struggle for a number of reasons, right? We know. But the most difficult piece was networking, because it's really frowned upon. it's fraternizing with someone either above your rank or below your rank.
Yeah.
And there's potentially repercussions when you do that. So being sensitive to that for different populations, and it isn't a potentially just innate skill. It's often learned, right? And so especially when we think about the veteran population and being sensitive to that, and working with just veterans here in Arizona in the employment space and realizing, there's an opportunity to help people ease into networking, and it doesn't have to be so scary.
It does not. And I think just being intentional about setting goals and then making sure you have the right network around you. I know in the military, sometimes we like to ask our buddies, but they haven't, gone to the next level or where we're going to go. And
Right.
so they're great people to talk to, but maybe not great people to network with to get to the next level or wherever you need to go.
Right.
And I think it's really important to think about what your goals are. And then maybe your network needs to change. And you have to build it.
Right. What's the vision, right? And adjusting from there. Well, this has been an amazing conversation. Thank you. I look forward to more conversations, especially around women and women's conferences. And I know in your current business, the coaching and consulting business that you have some things happening for you. And so tell us a little bit about that and how people can find you.
Yeah, I'm really excited. I left corporate and I had this vision for what I was going to do. And as any good entrepreneur, I have made pivots since then. And I really am working on following my passion. And I recently took a women's coaching certification and some other coaching certifications, and just feel really a strong passion to help women who are in transformation to kind of enrich their lives in business and in relationships. So I have a website, intentionalleadersllc.com. It's up and running, but I will be making a whole new rebrand come August. And I'm really excited about that and the programs and opportunities that I'll be launching to work more with women one-on-one, and less of the consulting work that I'm doing now. So very excited about that. I'm easy to find on LinkedIn and always love to have a conversation, and have a link in my email where you can set up a discovery call with me if you're interested.
Awesome. Well, Charlie, thank you. It's been great chatting with you, learning more about your journey, and just really appreciate you being a guest today.
Well, thank you for having me. I appreciate it so much, Christine.
Brightworks Consulting hosts this podcast and YouTube channel to spotlight the leadership around the world that is changing lives. Brightworks offers a myriad of consulting services in the public and private sector, to include diversity, equity, and inclusion solutions for any size company. You can find us at www.brightworksconsulting.com. We're honored to have Best Companies AZ as a presenting sponsor for this podcast. Best Companies AZ is your #1 source for regional employer branding. You can find them at www.bestcompaniesaz.com.